Welcome to Cradle and All, a podcast hosted by sisters Renita and Christine to educate, inspire, and connect with other mothers. Every other week, listen as we discuss topics related to pregnancy, raising children, and balancing motherhood with other aspects of womanhood. Whether you're relaxing, juggling tasks, or even breast pumping, join us as we figure it out together.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Cradle and All. This is Christine.
Hey, and it's Renita.
So glad to have you back. We were here to talk about ourselves, our identity as women, as mothers, and how the evolution of motherhood has evolved us as women as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting sometimes when I think back to what life was like before kids. Like sometimes I'm like, gosh, it seems like literally a lifetime ago. What was I doing with all my free time?
Yeah, I feel like that's every mom's like thinks about that, about what was I doing with my free time and what was I doing with all that money? Because I had so much money. If I had all the money that without spending on daycare and stuff, what would I do?
But honestly, it's like a transformation of who you are as a person, because you transform in different aspects of your life. You're not going to be the same person today that you were 10 years, 5 years, even 5 minutes from now. But thinking back to how I've transformed since my pregnancy journey with my firstborn Jackson, it's really astounding to see how much can change.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when we started this podcast, we were talking about our purpose and how we would describe ourselves. And I remember saying in my bio that one day I was young, single, and free. And the next thing you know, I was thrusted into motherhood. And I said that because I had like an unplanned pregnancy, and then it did seem like overnight. And Dontrell was like offended that I said that. But to me, it just felt so quick. Just such a sudden shift between, well, also I got pregnant and was married all in the same year, had not a shotgun wedding, just funny to say that, but I was pregnant at my wedding. So that's why it felt so fast, but just how quickly I had to change things about myself to become a mom. Whereas 12 months, 8 months, 9 months before that, I was very much like very free and just like thinking about myself more than anyone else. So it's such a rapid and dramatic change. And I'm curious, I'm excited about this conversation to hear how you maintain things that you love to do before having a baby, your things about your personality, because those things all could be in jeopardy when you focus so much energy on your family and on your children and your husband.
No, that's so true. For me, I planned and mapped out this life that included having children, and it took a while to get pregnant. And so you would think that once they're here, it's like, well, you've had all this time to prepare and you know what to expect with how your life will be. But even in that situation, it's not always going to be that way. Back before I started medical school and I graduated from college, I did this health fellowship. And one of the things that we did at the training session for this health fellowship was draw out like a pie graph, and each slice of the pie signifies how you would define yourself. And so some pieces are going to be bigger than others. And I literally, as we were preparing for this episode, was thinking about how I drew out the things that I represent me on that pie graph back in 2008 compared to what I would right now. And I literally don't even think the same quote unquote pie slices would even be on my pie today, let alone, now that I have 2 kids. So,
what was on it back then?
Yeah. I mean, basically it was like, how would you describe yourself and what are the things that are important to you? So a lot of the things that were on there were really career focused and aspirational when it came to work, because at that time I had just graduated from college. I was preparing to go to medical school, and it was all kind of those type of goals. And so the ways that I classified myself on there were the traits that would make me strong at a job. Like leadership was on there, and being really dedicated and focused, being, the things that were really important to me at the time had to do with career. So like medicine and taking care of people. And those things are very much still important to me. And I still have those qualities. But if somebody told me today to draw out the things that are really important to me and how I would view myself or highlight that on this pie graph, it would be very different in that balance and finding time for myself is something that's going to be on there that I probably wouldn't even have mentioned before. And the qualities that I talk about, though I still think I'm a leader and things like that, they may be more like how I, work with other people and how I'm able to balance things like taking care of the kids at home. So it really incorporates the skills that transcend home and my other life. And so it's just interesting to see how being a mother can transform who you are in general, which obviously you expect that in different things, but no one really prepares you for that when you talk about that next step into parenthood.
Yeah, no, they don't. And of course it's natural for certain things you're interested in to transform over time, even if you don't have kids. But I feel like with kids, sometimes if you're not careful, you can lose certain things that you once loved and still love because you don't make time to do those things.
Oh my gosh, you can lose yourself. Yeah. For sure.
Like for me, before I had kids, I was very active, like physically. I've mentioned this before about how much I love to go spend time outdoors, walking, hiking, doing yoga, just really intentionally making time to be physically active. But then I think that's one of the first things that goes when you don't have what you feel like you don't have as much time. And it took me, and I was very good about making time for that with one child, but then you, not only one child, but then when you begin to have more than one child, now you really can start to lose yourself. And so what I was able to do with one to somewhat make time, with two, it was almost impossible for a while until I had to make lifestyle changes to make the things that I enjoy doing before having kids fit into my life. I mean, it's such a puzzle piece sometimes. You have to be so intentional. Like I would schedule out my day when I worked from home. When I had one child, it was easy for me to just make literally chunk times of the day to commit to things that I love to do. But like I just said, when I had more kids and also growing in your career, which is great, but that also is time consuming. I started to shrink even more and more the things that I loved when I started to get further in my career and have more children. So, oh man, it's such a struggle. Like I think it takes time, and there is no handbook for folks to learn how to maintain your identity and the things that bring you joy.
Let's talk a little bit about what the transition was like for you when you in immediately postpartum, because I think that, at least for me, I can't speak for you, but one of the first times that I feel like I was like, okay, who am I? What is going to be this new normal was in that first few months or first year after giving birth. And that was with both of the kids, because there's this period of time where you're getting used to a lot of things. You're getting used to the day-to-day responsibilities that you have to do, but also there's like figuring out what's your new normal and how you feel about yourself and how you go through your day. For me, I think that I was struggling to find a balance in how to handle it all, because a lot of times I place my value in the outcomes from the things that I do in the day and successfully completing a task and handling all the responsibilities. So that's part of how I identify with myself, is my ability to get a job done. And that looks different when you have a newborn, when you have new kids, because your time is different. The amount of energy you can put into something or even focus on something may be different. So that was part of a transformation for me, when was kind of like where I see my value in what I do, because maybe I'm not able to accomplish things in the time frame or how I would have done it before, but I need to know that I have to be flexible and don't be too hard on myself. So that was part of that transformation for me. How were things for you immediately postpartum or in that first year?
Yeah, I think I definitely had to allow myself time. I was not in a rush. Well, I was in a rush to get back to being active with my first child. And I felt like we had a pretty solid routine very early on with Dallas. It felt very like, oh, great, we got this down packed. So because he was just very taking to the routines very well. And so then I was able to work out, which was something I like to do. I was able to go to yoga. I was able to cook meals and like actually try different meals and cook his baby food and really getting into being a mom. I felt like I was taking to that identity and that role. And that was something that was giving me joy. So I didn't feel like I was losing anything. I felt like I was gaining. It was like, okay, now I'm going to try these different purees and we're going to try the, just really getting into it. And then making time for working out. And my husband worked out of the home at that time. So it was like kind of a handoff, like, okay, you take him now and I'm going to the gym. So with one child in that postpartum period, it felt very easy and fluid. And that was only the first 3 months. But then I had to start traveling for work and things started changing at that point. But I think getting excited and into the mom role, that felt like an identity and a new excitement, a new joy that I was getting into. That was kind of felt like, just felt like a natural role.
That's really good.
But then with two, as he got older, as we, things start happening in life that can even pull you away more. At that point, it's like traveling for work, moving into a new home, husband has a new job, and like all, different expenses that come with it. And with all these new life stressors that got added on, that also then took away from my mental capacity to give to the things that I like doing, little things. Even like I remember, I think at that time, at some point during my having my kids, and they were younger than they are now, there was like a Black Lives Matter, a lot of things going on with that. And I was like, if I had no kids, I'd be out there right now protesting. I'd be in the streets, because I did before I had children. And I remember feeling like, well, what can I do? I felt disappointed and sad that I couldn't do more. So I remember I donated. But that was just one solid example of me thinking like, gosh, I'm not doing what I would be doing or what I really want to do, because I'm a mom. For one, I don't want to like put myself in any danger, or any, not danger, but like it did get violent in some cities, or like, all craziness. Mm-hmm. But that was an example of me thinking like, well, I guess that's something I can't do anymore because I'm a mom.
That's so interesting that you say that, because there are some things that I feel like being a mother makes me not able to do, or makes me need to prioritize more. And I don't know if I put those labels on myself, or if society does it, or where that comes from. So as you said, like maybe you feel like you can't go out and be involved in a protest, or maybe that's something that's not safe or that appropriate or whatever, because you now are a mom. Or like for me, sometimes, and I know this part's in my head, but sometimes I'll feel like, oh, I want to go out and like stay out late and do something completely, what I would have done if I was younger or didn't have kids. But I also feel like, well, I can't really do that, stay out as late as I want to, or what have you, because I have these responsibilities that I need to do. And that doesn't mean that people who have kids aren't able to do that stuff, but I think it's the kind of thing that I put in my own head, which then makes me realize, okay, who are setting the rules here? You can really live your life the way you want to live it and make the identity that you want for yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. Like these unwritten rules, these societal expectations, because I had those too. I remember there was a point where, and I've always been going out since I was in high school. I've always been one to like to go out and have fun. And I even heard from people saying, you shouldn't do that. You can't do that anymore, because like, well, you need to prioritize your family. You can't stay out. And I literally got that feedback from folks. And I was thinking, yes, I can. I can still do both. I think the hardest part is if you stay out late, you still got to get up early because the kids are getting up regardless.
Yeah. But that's a decision that you can make. Like if you know what you got to do, just do it.
Right. But I think in early motherhood, like when the kids are in their first year of life, we talked about this also about like feeling tethered, especially when you're nursing, especially when there's some limitations maybe your body has that I felt like I really that was something I just couldn't do anymore because I felt like guilty almost for leaving the kids and but my husband, on the other hand, was still going out and doing, and I felt like a little anger. I'm like, you're still doing these things. I'm not. And you're right. It's like, who's putting these rules? Is it him, me, society?
That's so true. Or like, when women are pregnant, they hear things all the time. Oh, don't lift, don't do this, don't do that. People hear that in pregnancy, but it flows into parenthood a lot too. So I would hear from people, they'd be like, oh, when you have kids, like they're going to take up your whole life. They're going to come before your husband, versus some people who say like, don't let kids take over your whole life. You want to make sure that you are still you because you don't want any regrets. And then when the kids are out of the house, then you have nothing. And so I think I had taken on a lot of what people had said about that kind of stuff. And I felt like I had this whole life and these priorities before kids were there. So I'm not going to let that get in the way. And so I was really dead fast. What's the word? Steadfast. I was steadfast about like making sure that I keep my career priorities, since that was so important to me, and my side passions. But at the same time, like my capacity, as you just said, like you can only do so much in a day. So I would be having these moments of like, okay, I want to do it all, but like literally how? Like I don't have time in the day.
Yeah.
Something's got to give. There are times I feel like I don't want my kids to be the thing. I don't want my husband to be the thing. And the thing that got lost and gets lost at times is myself. So I've been on a journey in the last year really to focus on my self-care, because I feel like since having kids, like I'm trying to maintain this lifestyle of the priorities that I have. And I've just, put myself on the back burner. So sometimes that is, the thing that you might lose is your actual self, the things, your self-care, your taking care of your health, or just,
doing things that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I remember you doing that and saying that, especially in your career. It's like you've worked all these years, you're finally picking up momentum in your career, and now you have children and you're out of work for several months. Then you have to work your way back up. So it does feel like a race, almost a marathon, to keep the same pace that you had before kids and to not drop off. And I think, and that goes back to, I think we could take this back to a history lesson about women in the workplace and so much tied to what that all means societally. But you're right. I agree with like trying to what you were saying about maintaining the pace and wanting to really keep everything like at 10 cylinders. But the thing that gives is your own investment in yourself. But I even remember one time I was interviewing for a job when it was like 2020. And the woman I interviewed for was the VP of this department. Like she was the final phase of the interview. And I was telling her, I was like, yeah, I want to have this job because I want to have more flexibility with my schedule, but I also am considering a full-time position. And she recommended to me, she's like, well, you don't have to work so hard right now. Like you're a young mom. And she was telling me her experience and how she basically didn't work for years to be a mom. And then she got back into her career. But I was offended by hearing her say that, by her telling me like, you don't have to work as hard. You don't have to do as much. And I was thinking, yes, I do. What do you mean? Just because I have kids doesn't mean I can't do both and have it all. And I feel like that is such a struggle that's like a constant battle that moms have. It's like this push and pull of am I giving too much here? Then it's like a balance beam. You give too much over here, this other side's not giving enough. And it's like this tug of war. So she said that, and I was thinking, you can actually have it all. I can still have a full-time career and be a great mom and have time for myself. You can have it all. It's just a matter of figuring that out. And that can take time. As you said, you're now figuring out, and you have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, is still pretty early on to figure it out.
Have you've heard that saying, work smarter, not harder? I would say that like, if I had to think about what I've learned since being a mom, that's probably what I've taken away from this. For me, I've spent a lot of my life working really hard toward things, working hard toward a career. When I was trying to get pregnant, it took a year, working hard at that or trying to plan that out and everything like that. And trying to meet all these milestones just to have this goal of quote unquote having it all. And so when it's here in front of you, you have the things that you worked so hard for. You sometimes may want to keep working hard and pushing yourself to the bone. But what I think I'm trying to take away from the lessons I'm learning in the last few years is really your capacity may not be what it was before because you have more on your plate. So figuring out a way to find that balance with all of it, with yourself at the center. And so I'm trying to work smarter, not harder. There are times that I'm like, I have even today, like I have a lot of stuff on my plate today, crazy amount. I just have to accept the reality that it is not all going to get done and the world is not going to come crashing down. There are going to be some things that don't get done for a while. So finding a priority for what comes first. And many times the priority needs to start with myself. And then from there with my husband and my kids. And then from there with work and really time blocking things. And once I kind of shifted those priorities, and again, those are the priorities for me, those may not be the priorities for everybody, but really putting myself first really turned everything on its head. Because what was happening before is that it would be work plus kids plus husband and everyone's competing for it. And I'm all the way at the bottom. I'm, not able to really get by because mentally I'm fried and stressed out. But turning everything around and realizing that, hey, I should put exercise first, or I should put my meditation first and get a little bit more sleep meant that when I do have time to play with the kids, I'm in a great mood. I am investing and focused all my attention on them so that when I go to work, I'm not thinking about anything other than I have to do at work. So that's like the thing I try to take home. That will be probably the thing I'd whisper to my old young self and be like, hey, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. And also, like you said, putting yourself at the center. It's like what I remember Dad always telling us this. Well, he told me, I don't know if he told you, but I think he probably told you because you do it.
Yes.
He said,
I'm sure he's
put money in your pay yourself first.
Yes.
So that means when you get paid, put money in your savings account, then pay your bills, because you really do have to put yourself first to be the best self that shows up for every other part of your life. So I think that's a hard reality, a hard thing for folks to do, but it really will pay off in the long run because you're showing up as a better version of yourself. And that means saying no sometimes and knowing that it's okay to say no and not taking on every responsibility at home and at work and even socially, and advocating for yourself at work. I had to do that with my last job and be like, I have to leave at this time. I have to take my kids to practice. They have karate. I'm leaving at this time. And they have to be okay with that. I mean, I really would just put my foot down with certain things because it's like, yes, this career is important to me, but so is my family, and both things can work. And I feel like, thankfully, I feel like a lot of companies are starting to understand that now more and more.
Yeah. Having this conversation, we are talking a little bit about what we've learned and lessons we learned. And it's kind of like where we are right now. And we're always a work in progress, but sometimes people don't get to see the hard lessons that we went through. And I think I went through, quite a bit with certain things. One of those things was finding time for like my friends and family and my social life. When I had Jackson, I was supposed to go to my 5-year college reunion. And I was like, I made all these grand plans. Like it was 3 weeks after the delivery. I was going to let Bryson watch the kids while I went and hung out with my friends and all this stuff. And it was like the first rude awakening that like, girl, you're healing from a C-section. You've got postpartum depression. You're struggling with nursing. Like you're not in any shape or any mental place to go to like a 5-year reunion and hang out with your friends. And there are moments like that it comes up. Like I may not always be able to do the things that I want to do at the drop of a dime if I don't have planning with childcare, or if I want to go out of town to like something with friends or just visit a friend from out of town, since my friends are, many of them are around the country, like it involves a lot of planning in a way that I don't have, I didn't have to do before. And that was a really hard thing to get used to as well, because it's already hard enough when, things like life in general or career and things like that get in the way. But with kids, it's even harder to balance because you have to think about childcare and who's going to watch. And not all of us are on, at the same place with childcare. So it may not always be the same. So I think that was another thing that was a little shift for me there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Relationships for sure. Friendships that evolve and change because you have children now and your friends may not. That was a reality for me too. Like for me, I still, and to this day, still prioritize spending time with my friends, at least once a month with one or a group of friends and doing things socially. But that I started that with my first child and made a point. My husband and I were like, we are still going to be ourselves. We literally had a conversation of like, we want to still do the things we love and be parents. That means we're still going to go out. We're still going to travel. We're still going to have fun. We'll just do it with our kids and we'll find a way to do both. For me, that meant realizing that, I couldn't do everything, like, cause childcare for one, like you said, it's not like it's just easy to just hop up and go. You have to find childcare and you have to make sure that whoever's watching the kids you're comfortable with, and planning, everything has to be planned in advance. There's no more last minute, oh, such and such invited me. Like there's just so much more that goes into maintaining relationships and maintaining friendships now. It can't just be, we're meeting up on Friday. It's like, yes, text messages are great, but even that for me sometimes can be difficult because I don't even respond that quickly. I used to not,
oh my
and
God,
I still don't.
That's the story of my life.
Yeah. But that's me with everyone, even more so now because of the kids and because I'm just invested in whatever I'm doing. I'm 100% in, I'm not looking at my phone. So there's little things like that have changed that I would not have even guessed and imagined that though even a text message chat would be affected by having children. And it is.
Oh my God. I'm the worst with text messages. And like, we have a group chat for me and my line sisters. Like I literally just turned it on mute eventually because I was like, I'll catch up when I can get to it. But like, I just am so bad with immediate conversation in that way, but I am the best at a long phone call. Like I will catch up with people and be on the phone for like an hour, just checking in that way. But again, it's like figuring out what's going to work for you. So I make sure to try to check in with friends in that way, or if I haven't seen you in a while, then we'll try to get together like that. But it just had to be a new normal. So shifting expectations.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a new normal because, even in that example, every little aspect of your life is changed by having children, whether you're prepared or not. Text conversations, and even those conversations you're having, probably at some point your kids will be brought up into it because they're a major part of your life, your commute, like every single thing changes. And I feel like it takes a while to adjust to those changes before it feels like you can't even imagine what your life was like before.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. One of the biggest changes that I think a lot of women probably deal with in their view of themselves is what they look like after they have a baby. And I know we had a whole talk about like postpartum body and stuff like that before, but for me, that is a big part of how I view myself. I didn't normally exercise and stuff like that before. So it's not about like skinny or weight or anything like that, but even like how I carry myself. So looking at my body after having kids and even now, like you've got extra skin. I have scarring from the acne that I had in pregnancy that seems to never want to go away. Or like, I feel like I'm perpetually have dark circles under my eyes from just being tired all the time. So getting used to, some of these new flaws or, beautiful features from having kids that are there, that was something to get used to as well. Or the fact that like my clothes fit differently and accepting that this is a new thing for me because I had kids, and learning to love that, I think was something that I used to identify as a big part of my identity. And now it's not probably so much because I just know it's a new normal.
Yeah. I am always, when it comes to the way I look, I feel like with weight, that can always change. I'm like, yeah, I just work out more. I'll be different. Like I'll be fitter. Like for me, my hair was something that was a shock because of like the changes in my hairline, that kind of
people don't always talk about, I mean, they talk
irritated
about
me.
postpartum shedding, but like some pretty significant.
Mm-hmm. So how would you, what is one thing that you feel is one of the biggest changes that you experienced before having children and after having children when it comes to your identity and how you viewed yourself, or maybe a change in something you did before that you don't, or that changed or evolved or that you don't do now?
You know, every time we talk, I always feel like you have these wonderful positive qualities and mine are always negative. But that's just my perspective sometimes, and maybe it's just about how I view certain things about myself. But I truly think that I was very confident about how I went about life in the world, because I just was on this straight track for all the things that I wanted for myself. And then I lost confidence as I entered motherhood, because it's new territory, a lot of new changes, and kind of questioning myself. And so for me, I didn't love my identity in the first few years of motherhood, because I was like, am I good at this? Am I doing this right? It's so different than before. But I find as I'm getting further along that I'm proud of my ability to find balance, because that's something that I think I didn't necessarily have before, though I probably thought I did. My ability to learn how to let go of things and be flexible with my expectations, because I don't think that that was necessary for the life I was living before, for my goals that I had at the time. So my newfound flexibility, my ability to relate to other women when it comes to work from the perspective of being a mother, it really kind of shifted how I move when it comes to work and being a mom and being a friend and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So at first it was building the confidence that I think I lost, but then just, it was more so working to build that confidence helped me to realize I need to just have different expectations for myself, because I'm just being too hard on myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm glad you came to realize that. I mean, I've noticed that about you lately as well, that you're really making time for yourself in a way that I haven't seen you do before, that it seems very clear that something has shifted and you're prioritizing you, which is great.
Much necessary.
Yeah, it's so necessary. I mean, it's like just, it changes everything. But it takes a while to get there. It does. I mean, even for me, I feel like one of the changes, the biggest change for me before kids and after kids has been claiming my life, claiming things in my life differently. So that means, for example, I just took a major shift in my career so that I can be the person I truly want to be, as far as having what I feel like is having it all, having balance, work-life balance, home and extracurricular balance. And for me, that meant kind of trudging through and getting, really burning the candle at both ends, kind of like you were saying, Renee, like really just doing it all to get to this point where I feel like I can now have balance in all aspects of life. But at the same time, I feel challenged with this identity of a mom right now because of the kids changing personalities and also the changes that we have put in their life with us moving into this temporary living situation. So for me, I feel challenged because as they grow, of course, they change, and seeing the dynamics between my kids, their personalities, like the toddler tantrums, and with both of them, for me, it's actually kind of difficult because I don't feel as confident in how I'm responding to them and how I'm teaching them through their behaviors as I did when they were younger, and it was kind of a little bit easier. And so I feel like I actually am in a place now where I can be more patient and learn what, maybe do a little bit more learning about what would work for them, what doesn't work. But I had to work to get to this place where I now have freed up my schedule and have more flexibility with my time to do what I want in my day, from personal to professional to like self-care time. Whereas before it was really just kind of grinding it out to get to a place where I could make this life change. But I don't think that anything's wrong with that. I feel like there's always seasons in your life. And so I think we had both been in seasons where we were like really hustling a lot to get to certain places, and still hustling a lot to grow our career, grow our family. But sometimes it feels more grueling at certain points than others. But I think it's all going to like come out in the wash, all going to kind of level out. But I think having young kids and being career driven, it will be grueling. I don't think there's any way around that.
Yeah. Yeah. As we talk about identities, what are 3 words that you would use to describe how you see your identity as a woman right now?
So I would say the identities would be, the ones that are most prominent are a Black woman, a business woman, and family oriented, a family woman.
Family woman.
Yeah. Those are the most important things. Those are definitely top priorities. And I think that comes out in everything that I do. If I had to choose 3, I mean, there's definitely more, but those are the ones that I think are the center focus of my life right now. What about you?
So if I had to say 3 ways I would identify myself. So I would say, gosh, this is hard. I asked you the question. Now I'm like,
Yeah.
like, what's the answer? I would definitely say a physician, because I think that's a big part of my identity. A Black woman is a big part of my identity. And I think being a mother is something I value and care about. Now, if I had to say, so those would be my 3 things, but the characteristics, and if I had to describe my characteristics, I would say empathetic is a big part of how I view myself. I would also say that I think giving would be something that's a big part of myself, but also passionate. And when I think about these characteristics and how I identify myself years prior, of course, the identities will be different. Like Black woman was still probably a big one, physician, or working towards that. Mother wouldn't have been there, but like family oriented would have been the same thing. Family has always been a big thing. So I think that those identities and how I describe myself will be the same, but I think the characteristics might have been different.
Right.
Because as I said, like leadership and like hardworking oriented, like it was more like about how hard I was working. And I definitely think that I still work hard and those things are important, but just my characteristics and how I view the priorities of that would be different. What about you? What about your characteristics? Your top 3?
Oh goodness. I don't know. That is a hard question to pin it down into 3 on the spot, but I mean, I feel like some of the things, my personal beliefs, my personal philosophies, those things, those characteristics for me, I don't know that those have changed. Maybe the order has changed, but I still feel like they're all still there. Leadership, motivated, driven, compassionate. I feel like I can see how, like I was saying, the order has changed over time depending on the season that I'm in. But I still know that the way that I was in college, in my career as an educator, I still had the same grounding principles as I do now. And I apply them to different parts of my life differently. And they come out more at different times. So with leadership, I think in my career and how I approach things, that's there. With compassion, I see that with the kids and how they are with each other, how I engage with them, the loving nature. So I think that we all have these core beliefs, core principles that are there, these core characteristics that make us who we are, but just may rearrange at times based on what's going on in our lives. And I think we probably have a lot of similar ones because of how we were raised and the qualities that our parents instilled in us as well.
Yeah, I think that's really it. The take home that I'm hearing is like, we are the same people at the end of the day, but things shift in what the priority is. And you'll see that with any aspect of your life. But I think motherhood just allows for that shift at certain things. And later on, depending on where we are in this, what the stage of where our kids are, or what our life has in store, we'll see a shift again.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's all there. It just, and I think we're surprised. I know sometimes I surprise myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I could do that, or I had that strength, or I was that way. But it was there all along. It really was.
Yeah.
So I also was curious about, oh yeah. So you said that you have recently have been prioritizing yourself more, and you have been able to invest more time in the things that you like to do, the identities and the experiences that you are pouring into yourself. How did you, like, if you had a toolkit or like a blueprint of how you got here, how did you get to this point where you were able to embrace and make more time for yourself and do the things you enjoyed doing?
I mean, honestly, I think that like there just came a point where mentally I was fried. Like I just could only do so much in the day. And I had plans of like, okay, you're going to wake up every morning and get XYZ done for yourself. And then the rest of the day, you can focus on everything else. But it wasn't actually panning out. And then it would be this cycle of, oh, why didn't you do what you said you were going to do? And then being stressed. And mentally, I just felt like I wasn't in the same place that I was before, specifically with anxiety. I think I've mentioned before that sometimes I do have this anxiety that creeps up, and a lot of it stems from aspects of being a parent and the responsibilities that come along with parenting. And this is something I personally don't think I had much of any issues with anxiety before kids. And so I was like, I need to put my money where my mouth is. And I talk to patients in the office, or we'll talk on this podcast and say, hey, we should be doing this, but it really wasn't panning out. So eventually it got to the point where I was like, I need to put myself first, because if no one does, then I'm definitely not going to do it. No one else is going to do it but me. Mm-hmm. And so I literally was like, I'm going to put on a calendar that this is the time just for me. Don't schedule anything here. Make it a priority to do the exercise. Exercise is something that I really wanted to do. And my accountability was that it was already on the calendar. If I missed a workout class, I'd get a charge for it. And eventually those things are now becoming more of a habit, and I'm looking forward to it. And then the reward is that I feel good when it happens. So like, I meditate, and that's something that I've always really liked doing since I started doing it. And so now I realize before I do anything, if I start my day with a meditation, it's going to set the tone, and I can see it in action. So once I was able to make that a habit after a couple of weeks, it was like, nothing is going to get in the way of this meditation. Nothing's going to get in the way of this exercise. And that also helped when things weren't getting done on my to-do list, because I was like, oh, well, it wasn't the end of the world. Like, no one died. We all survived. Like, I was setting deadlines that like really were set in my head. And obviously there are some real life deadlines that have to be met, but shifting my expectations was a big part of what I think is helpful into placing myself as a priority, realizing that I have to come first or everything else is going to fall apart. Because there were times where I really felt like it was falling apart.
Yeah. Did you work with a therapist to come to this conclusion, or was it on your own?
Yes, I did. I love my therapist, and she was helpful in that. She literally was like, she talked me through it. She's like, what's going to happen if you don't get this thing done? It's not the end of the world. Literally little baby steps of like, put your phone down. Like, we get into little habits that we don't even realize. And I'd be doing something, but have my phone in my hand. And it's like, why is this phone even in your hand? You're not even looking at it. So learning and getting into the habit of like really being in the moment, putting your phone away, not even in the room, or like when I'm with the kids, like I 100%, which I usually am, but like really going out of my way to be 100% focused on them, you know, even shifting priorities about that. Cause I used to have these moments of guilt of like, well, every other mom is like taking their kids to the park and going to the aquarium and doing all this stuff. When after working on call and, you know, crazy hours week on the weekends, I literally want to chill. And so again, like shifting my priorities and my expectations to say, my kids are getting these great experiences with me, even if they may not look exactly like what the neighbor is doing, but like we're doing all the fun stuff together. So that's kind of where I'm trying to shift my self-care priorities, is shifting my mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you start off by saying that it was just getting to a boiling over point where it's like, if this doesn't change, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of the same things I do that you were doing as well. One of the things was like planning ahead. That has been big. So knowing that we are going to make time to do things as a family. We're going to make time for date nights. We're going to go out. We're going to do things.
You guys are so good about date nights.
Yeah, we love date nights. We've gone out every weekend this month, and we're going out every weekend in October. So we just are like, we're still going to live a life, and we're going to make plans. We have a calendar in the house, and we just mark on there what we're doing, even if we have to, you know, get a babysitter or whatever. Like we're going to do it. And also for me, it started with like goal setting, a big goal setting with my job, like transitioning from working in corporate America to working for myself, saying like, I'm going to do this. I actually had the goal of like August 2022, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to invest in my business. And that was something I was working towards, like knowing I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm scared. Oh my gosh, but I'm going to do it. And that helped me. And I knew that by that point, when I get to that point, what is life going to look like? I'm going to have more free time. I'm going to do this with the kids. And just actually setting that goal way in the back in the past and working towards it. And big goals, but also little goals. I set like, I want to work out 3 times this week. I'm going to go to 3 workout classes. Like you're saying, put it on the schedule, buy the classes and go. We're going to go to a festival this weekend as a family. We went to that Duluth festival last weekend, which was really cute, by the way, but like saying, we're going to do this as a family. We're going to like, I want to do this activity with the kids and, you know, just actually planning ahead. And I think that helps you look forward to things, and it could be plans for the family, but also things that I enjoy doing. I would plan those things ahead. And also, like you said, leaving it alone, knowing that if you don't get to it, everything's okay. Like when Dontrell travels for work, it's like a marathon because it's working and then getting the kids coming home, then it's messy and then they're in bed. It's like, oh my God, now it's all these dishes. It's like, you know what? I don't have to do those right now. They can get done tomorrow. I can pick this up later. There had been a time, and still can be times, where I'm like, I cannot go to bed with this house a mess. And it's like, you know what? Yes, you can. I don't have to exhaust myself for no reason. It's like these little small wins that are really big victories. But I think that's another part of just doing what makes you happy.
Yes. Take the little wins where you can.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So if you had to give any advice to your future self. Future self.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think. So like your future person who's coming up, or the person your past self. Wait a minute.
What?
If you had to give any advice to your past self, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Your past self, somebody who is going to, you know, be coming after you. What advice would you give them based on what you've learned now?
Coming after me?
Does that make any sense?
Somebody attacking me? Just kidding.
No.
But to my person, to my past self, I would, yes, it does make sense. So I would tell my past self to remember who I am and what I enjoy doing, to keep that alive, because that is really, I think that's such an excitement to being a person, is that unique part of you that got you here before you had kids. I'm like, you know what? My husband was attracted to my spontaneity, and I was always, you know, having a good time. I was like, I want to be that person still. I don't want to lose who I am because I have kids. I don't want to turn into like Miss Trenchbull from Matilda. I want to still have that joyful side to me. I think, you know, life can wear you down, and things you can start to be so negative at times. I would say just remember who you are, what makes you happy, and find that joy in every day, and make it a priority to keep that joy and to do the things that keep you, because then you're showing up as your best self. There was a time when that got lost, and even still I could sometimes be negative and like not as happy for the life that I have. You know, you keep like, oh my God, I have to do this next. You know what? I get to do this. This is what I want. This is what I've been working for.
Yeah.
And just remember that, and not to forget that this is what we all live for, is family, career, and we actually have what a lot of folks desire.
That's so true. That's so good.
What would you tell your past self?
I think I would tell my past self to don't be so hard on yourself. Like, follow your gut and be the example that you want to be for your kids. That's literally what I think about when I do things sometimes. Like when I'm in a moment where I'm super frustrated and flustered or stressed out, I'm like, I want to be able to balance things, not in name, but in action. So it's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. Or when I'm around the house, I'm my most, fun self. I'm singing, laughing, dancing. And those are the kind of memories that I want my kids to see. And that's the kind of mom that I think I want them to talk about. Like, oh, my mom was always having fun and, having a good time. And I want that to be reflected into what I do in everything. And so don't be so hard on yourself, and just think about what you want to pass on to your kids and use that as your guide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're definitely still works in progress, but I feel that we've totally come a long way, and I can't wait to see where we are in 2 years and how much more evolved we are at that point. So stay tuned. Hopefully we can have this same topic in a couple years and see how we've changed and other things that we've been able to maintain during that time.
That's so true. Yes, we'll see. Well, thanks for staying tuned with us this time, you guys, and we'll catch you back in 2 weeks for the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss a thing, and leave us a review. You can also follow us on Instagram @thecradleandall, or email us at thecradleandall@gmail.com.